Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at some improvising ideas for a solo over Girl From Ipanema or Garota de Ipanema by Carlos Jobim, which is a very popular bossa nova. I've done previous videos on my guitar arrangements, chord progressions on this beautiful piece, but today I thought let's dive into a little bit of some improv ideas. So what I've done is I've written out a solo, and then I'll sort of tell you how I derived that solo, which will give you some insights into how you can actually create your own solos. So let's get stuck in. So the chords for the opening section are F major 7, G7, G minor 7, G flat 7, sharp 11, back to F, and then up to G flat 7 again. Okay, so let's play through this solo slowly for the A section, and then we'll move on to the B section. So the start of this solo, I'm basically playing in F major, but I start with a pentatonic run, which is in F major pentatonic. Also, you could think of it as D minor pentatonic. Now, I've done a previous video on pentatonic, and I did it on the E minor pentatonic, which uses this sliding, moving sort of shape-based pentatonic scale. So using the same one here, but moved down one tone. Okay, so I do that as my opening run. A little bit of a slide there, and then I just work my way down in thirds in F major. Now, I should mention we are in the key of F major, so we're going to be playing pretty much a lot in F major, which would be natural notes with a B flat. So basically, F major has a B flat in it. So that takes care of the F part of the first two chords, the first two bars. Then we move to the G7, which point I play, which is a very Mixolydian passage. It's like a blues lick that I often play. I often do that, and you've probably heard me doing it in some of my other videos. It's basically playing in C major if you think about what the notes I'm playing. So basically going from B flat, the note B flat, to B natural. So because the G7 has a B natural in it. So that's our G Mixolydian mode. You can think of it as the fifth mode of C major, or just think notes in C major. I should also mention that the G7 is not part of the F major scale or F major key. It's a secondary dominant. So we sometimes in jazz we'll find the chord 2, chord 1, chord 2, but chord 2 in the dominant, which is just makes it sound a little bit more interesting. And it's also called the 5 of 5, which is the fifth chord of the dominant. So oftentimes we go. So the 2-5-1 can turn into a 2-7-5-1, but that's not what's going on here. We're simply going from F major to G7. All right, so that's the second scale that I'm using. We start with F major pentatonic, and then we do G7 or G Mixolydian. Then after that, we actually do go to G minor 7, at which point I go back to my F major scale, but I'm thinking really more chord tones here. But you could play any notes, anything back to in F major, thinking we're back in F major. And then we have this chord, which is G7, G flat 7, sharp 11. Now, this happens twice, and the first time I'm just going to treat it as a passing chord. So I'm going to continue to play in F. So I'm going to go. So I'm basically staying in F. And then we go back to F major. So basically, because I'm going from this chord to this chord, I'm sort of anticipating going back to F. So for the most part, it works. Also, you can think of this chord as like a C7, which is in F, with a tritone, the bass note a tritone down. So it just sort of creates this sort of moving bass line, you could say. So for the next 2 bars, I'm still playing in F. But the second time, when I go back to this chord, I feel like it has more of a roll and more tension. So I've decided to use the C sharp melodic minor scale, which is... Okay, so these are the notes in C sharp melodic minor, and they work over this chord. Now, to be sort of totally jazz terminology, you can call that scale a Lydian dominant scale, and we can talk about why that is. But basically, those notes work quite well over that chord. So you could think this is having a different function when it goes back. So I'm going to play. Okay, so we have a C sharp and a D sharp and a G sharp, which is a little bit outside the key, but then we bring it back, and I just play an F to sort of round it off. So I'm going to go, and then back to. So let's play through that again from the start of the A section and just see how that sounds. All right, let's give it a go from the top. 3, 4. So you can see that it all kind of fits together nicely, and you have that little bit of a different flavour for the last chord change. Okay, we're going to move to the B section, which jumps around a little bit. Actually, there's some interesting chords we can use and scales we can use here. So I'm going to play through it once and then talk about what we're doing. So, start of the B section, we go F sharp major 7. So suddenly we moved up from F to F sharp. So we're now in F sharp major. So that's basically what I'm playing. I'm playing an F sharp chord tones, but I'm thinking if in F sharp major. So I'm doing that, and then basically up and down the F sharp majors chord tones, and then I'm moving up towards the A. So once I've played my chord tones, move up to the A, and now we're playing B7, which is a little bit of an unusual. So what we're going to do is move to our B7 scale, which is our B mixolydian. So I'm moving down in my mixolydian scale. So you could think of that as notes in E major. But obviously we're playing with the B over B. So B mixolydian. All right. And then getting ready for my F sharp minor 7. And F sharp minor 7 is also in the same key. So we're basically still playing B mixolydian, but we're going to call it F Dorian. Still notes in E major. So we're moving from notes in F sharp major to notes in E major, but with different bass. So we could just play through that once. We're going to go. Now we're going to go to D9, so there's another shift. So we're going from F major 7, B7, which is our changing modality, F sharp minor 7, staying in the same modality. Now we're going to shift to D9, and just the same way as we did for B7 or B9, we're going to play our D mixolydian here. And the D mixolydian, we move to the notes in G major. which is basically natural notes with F sharp. So what I'm doing here is I'm thinking in D mixolydian. All right, so we do that for 2 bars, and then rather than going to a G major, we go to G minor 7. All right, so this is a little bit unexpected because we're sort of shifting up. The melody and the whole chord progression is moving up, and it's quite surprising. That's why I think this piece works so well. So now we're in G minor 7, and I'm going to play basically chord tones in G minor, and then the little blues riff, which is sort of a G minor pentatonic. Then again, one more shift, E flat 9. So this is again an E flat mixolydian, but I don't really play too many notes here. I just sort of a little bit of a rest in the notes, and I just play. I end up. So you might think we're still in the same key, but over that chord, it's the 3rd of the chord. So that's kind of a nice note to go to. And then I just do a little bluesy kind of movement, and then the final shift is A minor 7. So again, just thinking in the notes in A minor. Well, actually, I'm thinking of the notes in A Dorian, and then we go to our D7. So that's a 2/5 in G. So you're thinking G notes in G, which is A Dorian, D mixolydian. But I bring that E flat out because it's the flat 9, and then I just do the same thing 2 bars, 2 frets below. Okay, so let's just go from the top, and hopefully you'll hear, and I'll try and call out the scales we're using. 3, 4. Mixolydian, still in the same key. D mixolydian, G minor, chord tones, pentatonic, E flat, mixolydian, Dorian, mixolydian. So that was quite hard to sort of play and say that at the same time, but I was trying to give you an idea of what I'm thinking. Now, obviously, when you're improvising, you want to have all those scales at your disposal, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to start a scale and then end the scale. You're trying to blend one scale into the next. You're trying to blend one melody into the next. You're trying to blend one melodic idea and continue some sort of consistency, whether it's a sequence or just, for me, I just think melodically. So it's almost like you're thinking of a melody, you could sing over it, and then you try and put that into practice. So it's really, at a fast tempo, this is a tricky piece to play over, but I have a lot of kind of little scale patterns that I can always rely on if I need to, on the fly. And you can make life a lot easier for yourself if you understand what the underlying harmony is. And that's essentially what we're talking about. And it can get a little bit confusing when you're thinking, talking about different modes and, the differences between this key and that, and how does that fit on guitar. But that's why I've written out this solo, so that you can see the notes that I'm using and you can play through them and understand, okay. I mean, for example, the melodic minor scale that we're using over this chord can be quite confusing until you play over it, and then you start hearing how each of those notes relates to the chord. And it's all about color. It's all about how much tension do you want to have in your solo. Do you want it to be very diatonic in the key, or do you want to have some notes that kind of take it outside? And occasionally that happens accidentally, but for the most part, you start as becoming a better jazz musician, and I would regard myself more as a Latin player that delves into jazz territories. It's actually really fun to do this, and I find it that it's kind of a never-ending series of that you sort of never stop learning about this stuff. Anyway, I hope that helps. you with understanding some solo ideas, and I do get a lot of people asking me questions around how do you solo over a piece like this, and there are many different ways to do it, and there's probably a lot of jazz guys out there who could explain it better, but at least from my perspective, I think you can solo over this piece with only a handful of scales that sit fairly closely with each other, and always come back and rely on things like chord tones and pentatonic scales, which sort of help you navigate some of those tricky areas. That's it from me. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you sort of need further clarification, or if you don't understand something, or if you've got your own point of view about how one should solo over this piece. And thanks guys, and I'll see you next time.